The rain was a viscous wall of sound as my Lolo bass killed Ang Itam. The old goat didn't make a single sound. It just collapsed into the mud, its ancient, yellow eyes that felt older than this very mountain staring straight at me through the torrential curtain of rain. My Lola Elena, my grandmother, crumpled onto the threshold of our small Nepa hut, sobbing. "Based, what have you done?" She shrieked, her voice thin against the storm. It had the eyes of a person. "My God, it is a sin." Lolo Based just wiped his long bolo knife on his trousers. His face was like hard mahogany wood, completely unreadable. "They are coming," he said, his voice deep and flat, a strange finality in his tone. "They cannot be left hungry." He started to drag the carcass, leaving a dark, ugly smear on the wet earth. He looked over his shoulder at me. "Maria," he commanded. "Inside. Help your Lola." I hurried inside. The air was suffocating, sticky with the smell of damp rain, melting candles, and now the thick, coppery temps of blood. Lola Elena was trembling by the fire pit, her hands shaking as she ladled water from a large earthen jar into the black cast iron pot that hung over the flames. Lolo Based entered, bringing the cold of the storm in with him. He dropped heavy, skinned chunks of goat meat into the pot. Water splashed, hissing against the hot iron. He looked at Lola, his gaze hard. Just water, nothing else. Lola Elena stared at him, her eyes wide with disbelief and horror. No salt, no garlic. Based, you are mad. No salt. Lolo interrupted, his voice as sharp as his knife. No garlic, no vinegar, just water. Lola backed away, her hand flying to her chest to make the sign of the cross. Even I, a young girl, knew what this meant. Salt wards off evil. Garlic weakens them. What Lolo was doing. ... It wasn't cooking. It was a preparation, an invitation. The storm howled outside. A monstrous, living thing. We sat in a tense silence, broken only by the relentless drumming of rain on the Nepa leaves and the gruesome, bubbling sound coming from the pot. Then, through the roar of the typhoon, came a knock. It was a soft tap, 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 but it cut through the storm's fury with an unnatural clarity. Lola held her breath, her knuckles white as she gripped my arm. The knock came again, a little more insistent this time. A woman's voice, frail and desperate, drifted through the wooden door. "Please, help me." Lolo Based stood up, his movements deliberate. He walked to the door and drew back the heavy wooden latch. A cyclone of wind and rain burst in, extinguishing the single candle and plunging us into near darkness, lit only by the faint, dancing glow of the fire pit. A woman stood there, drenched and shivering. Her long black hair was plastered to her pale face, but it was her eyes that made me recoil. They were wide, too wide, and as red as gamamala petals. "Thank you," she breathed, stumbling inside. I am so hungry." "Sit," Lolo Based said, his voice steady. "We don't have much," Lola Elena stammered, instinctively shielding me with her body. Just boiled goat." "It's fine," the woman smiled, but the smile was a cold, empty thing that never reached her raw, red eyes. Lolo ladled a full bowl of the bland, unseasoned meat and offered it to her. She didn't bother with the spoon he placed beside it. She bent her face directly to the bowl, and I heard a wet, slurping sound, followed by a dry, sickening crack. Lola Elena pulled me closer, her lips brushing my ear as she whispered, her voice trembling with terror. "Maria, Apo, whatever happens, do not eat that meat. Not one single bite." The woman looked up from the bowl. Grease ran down her chin. She had eaten everything: the meat, the broth, the bones. Nothing was left. "Delicious," she said, licking her lips, "but I am still hungry." "It is all gone," Lolo replied, his tone firm. He jutted his chin toward the tiny, dark storage room at the far end of the hut. "You can stay in there and wait out the storm." The woman laughed, a sound like dry, dead leaves rustling in the wind. Without another word, she turned and disappeared into the pitch-black darkness of the room. We did not sleep. The storm seemed to lull after that, leaving only the sound of a steady, drizzling rain. But the silence inside the hut was far more terrifying than the typhoon had been. Lola mumbled her prayers, her rosary beads clicking softly in her shaking hands. Then, a sound came from the storage room. Not a knock, a voice, a whisper. "Apo, Maria." I froze. Every muscle in my body went rigid. Beside me, Lola stopped praying, her eyes wide with a primal fear. "I'm so cold. Anak, my child," the voice whispered again, sickly sweet and horribly intimate. "Don't listen to it." "Maria," Lolo based said, his voice a low growl. His eyes remained fixed on the main door, as if expecting something else entirely. The voice changed then, becoming strangely familiar, like a half-remembered song from a dream. "Maria, it's me. It's Mama." My heart stopped. My mother died giving birth to me. I had never known her, never heard her voice. I turned to my grandmother, my mind reeling with confusion. "Lola, no!" Lola cried, her voice cracking with desperation. "Your mother is with God. Don't believe it. It's a trick." A dry, chilling laugh echoed from the darkness. "With God, no. I'm right here. Bates let me in. He knew I was coming." Lola spun on Lolo, the fear in her eyes hardening into a blistering rage. "Based. What is this? What have you done to us?" "It's the debt, Elena. Be silent." Lolo roared, his voice shaking the small hut. But his words were drowned out by another sound. A roar. A roar so powerful it shook the foundations of our home, sending ash and dust down from the rafters. It came from outside. Something massive was pounding on the front door. "Open." A voice like grinding stones boomed through the wood. "Give her to me." The door didn't just open. It exploded inward, splintering into 1,000 pieces. Something impossibly massive stood in the doorway. It was too tall for the frame, its broad shoulders scraping the edges. It had to duck its head to look inside, and what I saw weren't eyes, but two black, empty pits staring out of a monstrous face. The stench of rotted meat and freshly turned graveyard earth flooded the room, choking me. "What did you do to her?" It roared, its non-existent gaze fixed on Lolo Based. The woman burst from the storage room, but she was no longer a woman. Her skin was split and peeling, revealing leathery bat wings and long, razor-sharp claws. She was an Aswang. She launched herself at the giant, screeching, "He is mine. The debt is mine." The giant sneered, "You lie." It sniffed the air, a grotesque, wet sound. "I smell, ... her. And I smell, ... It pointed a huge gnarled finger at the pot over the fire. "You fed her The offering. The two monsters collided with a sound like a thunderclap. The giant seized the female Aswang and threw her through the nipa wall as if she were a mere rag doll. She disappeared into the stormy night. The giant turned back to Lolo. "Now you, keeper of the pact." It lunged for my grandfather. But Lolo was ready. He didn't reach for his bolo knife. From the shadows beside the broken doorway, he pulled a long, sharpened bamboo stake, its tip blackened with age. With a warrior's cry, he rammed the tulos straight into the giant's chest. There was no blood, no scream of pain. The giant simply looked down at the stake protruding from its torso, then back at Lolo, its expression one of pure confusion. It opened its massive mouth, but instead of a roar, a flood of thousands of black, hissing insects poured out. Its entire body dissolved, collapsing into a seething, writhing pile of beetles on the floor. The rain blowing in from the broken wall washed them away into the mud. The hut fell utterly silent, save for the patter of the rain and our own ragged, gasping breaths. The female Aswang was gone. The giant was gone. Lolo Based let out a long, heavy breath. Lola Elena was still whispering prayers, her body shaking uncontrollably. "It is over," Lolo said, his voice raspy. "We are safe until the next cycle." Cycle? I stammered, my own voice a small, trembling thing. "What were they, Lolo? What was all this?" Lolo Base turned to me, and on his face was an ancient, bone-deep weariness. "A debt, Apo. An old debt." He pointed to the main post in the center of our hut, just above the fire pit. There, carved deep into the wood, was a small Anita statue, a guardian spirit of the mountain. Its seashell eyes seemed to watch over us. "The god of the mountain," Lolo said quietly. "Our ancestors made a pact, a promise. We are allowed to live on this land, to build our home, to farm. In return, every time the great Baguio comes, the typhoon that signals its hunger, we must give an offering." I looked at the now empty pot. "The goat." "The goat is the offering," Lolo nodded. "But there are others. Things like they are drawn to the offering. They smell it and they want to steal it for themselves to gain power. Our job, our part of the pact, is to protect the debt." My head was spinning. The smell of boiled goat, of rain-soaked mud, of dead insects. It was all too much. I woke up on my bannig mat, my body aching as if I'd been the one fighting monsters. Outside, I heard the gentle sound of birdsong. The storm had passed. The sun was shining. I stumbled outside, blinking in the bright light, and I froze. The rain was a viscous wall of sound. My Lolo Based was standing in the mud, his bolo raised high. In front of him, Angitam, the old goat, stood perfectly still, its ancient yellow eyes fixed on me. My Lola Alina was crumpled on the threshold of Annepahat, sobbing. "Based," she shrieked. "It has the eyes of a person. It is a sin." Lolo Based turned his head and looked directly at me. His face was a cold, hard, mahogany mask. "They are coming, Maria," he said, his voice flat and eternal. "They cannot be left hungry."